Well, we're now joined in studio with automotive expert Bud Pohill. Bud, welcome to the show.
Thanks for inviting me.
Excellent. Listen, we're going to talk about brakes. We had some viewer emails come in and people wanted to know a little bit about brake maintenance, what they should and shouldn't do. So we're going to review a little bit of those questions right now. But I've got a question right at the top that was sent in by a viewer. And one of them is, how often should we look at servicing our brakes and what exactly is involved with a typical brake service?
Every 10 to 15,000 kilometers you should check the brakes and service them. Make sure they're clean, make sure everything operates properly, make sure everything's free so that the brakes can work the way they're supposed to. And make sure you don't fall for the cheap oil change so they can check your brakes and get you in order to be able to sell you something, because I've had a number of people who have had their brakes checked and then brought them out. We've relooked at them and they didn't need replacement, but they were told that they did. So just be very cautious. If somebody comes and gives you a price or a quote on a brake job, get a second opinion in most cases.
Okay, Bud, you and I both know what's involved with getting the rotors turned. And maybe you could explain to our audience what you do when you turn the rotors and why we would do it.
Well, you machine the rotor to get rid of the grooves and the imperfections in the rotor, because first of all, if you're going to be putting new pads on that vehicle, you'll want two surfaces that mate properly. Secondly, you may have a vibration in the brakes. You know, when you're driving down the highway at 80 kilometers an hour, 90 kilometers an hour, and you put the foot on the brakes and you feel that bump, bump, bump in the brakes, that's generally the rotors are not true with the mounting surface, so you have to take them off and machine them. But in a lot of cases anymore, you can almost buy new rotors as cheaply as you can machine them. You know, there are rotors that are $25, $26. There are ones that are $100 also. If it's a $100 rotor, you may be better off to try and turn it first.
Why would you get a $100 rotor?
Well, some of them come with the bearings and with the bearing surfaces and everything on them. Other ones are just slide over the end of the hub. So the ones with the bearing surfaces, they're a little more money because there's a lot more material involved, a lot more machine work involved.
And when you're talking about that thumping noise,
yeah.
That's the rotors are actually warped.
Yeah,
basically.
it's not true. It's going down the road and it's moving back and forth, so you feel that right in the brake pedal.
Okay.
When you put the brakes on and you're trying to stop the car, everything's moving back and forth because it's not a true surface.
Okay.
And it starts out with just a very slight. When you pull up to a corner, you can feel the car jerking.
Yes.
And then as it gets worse, you'll notice it on the highway when you put the brakes on. It'll almost shake your teeth loose.
Now, I know this is a common sense question, but what can we do as daily drivers to prolong the life of our brakes?
Well, servicing is a good thing, and there's some particular vehicles that have disc brakes on the rear, and because most of the weight on a new car is on the front wheels, you need to really pay attention to servicing the rear brakes, because if they seize up, it's a very expensive job. It could be somewhere in the neighborhood of $600 to $700 to fix that. So if you have a car that has disc brakes on the rear, make sure that you take a close look at them on a very frequent.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense, because you don't want to be spending out extra money that you don't have to. And common sense driving habits, I'm sure. Just don't be pounding the brakes every time you have to stop. Be a little bit more defensive and take your time while driving. But thanks so much for joining us in the studio.
Thank you.
And stay right there, because we're going to move right into another showcase of fantastic automobiles for you to take a look at.